sports enthusiasts. You've just stepped into the ultimate podcast for all things in youth sports. After the Game is where we break down the game within the game, from coaching strategies to the role of parents and the secrets behind running a top-tier program. Expect insightful conversations, expert tips, and a whole lot of sports banter. Whether you're a coach, a parent, or a player chasing dreams, this is your go-to spot. So fasten your seatbelts. Here are your hosts, Ryan and Chad. Let's dive into the action.
All right, everybody. So today's guest, we have Coach Joe Adam. Joe, how are you doing today?
Doing great. It's a little cold in the Northeast, but it is February, so I'm getting used to it here.
Yeah. So you're in New Hampshire, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And where were you at previously?
I was in Syracuse, New York, my job before this one, and then a couple stops previous. Just western suburbs of Chicago, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then back in the northern area of Illinois again. So I'm originally from Illinois.
Okay, so we got another Midwesterner. I like that. That. So before we get started, are you a Bears fan?
I am.
Me too.
Yes.
I was actually born down in northwest suburbs of Illinois, McHenry County. McHenry. I lived there in a good part of my childhood before moving to the UP. As you hang around me long enough, you'll hear I say "ohs" and "yas."
Yep. I'm used to it. That used to be my recruiting area. I never went when I was at Grand Valley State, but a lot of phone recruiting and a lot of those conversations. So I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So currently, you're a head coach of Saint. I hope I don't butcher the name. Anselm.
Yep. Great.
Okay,
Great job. Great job on the first shot there.
Oh, thank you. I take pride in my pronunciation of things. So you're head coach there, football program. How long have you been doing that?
So I got here in 2016. So
okay. Oh, wow.
I try not to count COVID, so I still say 7 years, but, because I don't think anybody wants to relive the COVID year or that 12 months. So I count it as 7.
Okay, fair enough. So let's start from the beginning here. How long in total have you been coaching, and what were you doing prior to that?
So I really started coaching. This fall will be 28 years.
Wow.
In college football.
Wow.
And man, has it changed a lot.
Yeah. Good, because we're going to get into that. I'm curious to find out in some of the listeners.
So I've been lucky to sustain the test of time here in this game. Only lose my job once.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing, and only by the grace of God has that been able to sustain me. And so but it's been such a great ride, and it's something that I've had so much fun doing. And, I think the goal of any coach is, to impact people. And, I've always believed my mission and my statement is to build men with the platform of football. And I've been able to do that for a lot of years here. And so some have been really, really successful. Some have been hard builds, and some you've built it and you're like, man, we've been building for a couple of years, and all I can see is still the frame, but it's not for lack of hard work. Okay.
So with that being said, you're head coach of a religious college.
Mm-hmm.
Is that is that Catholic?
It's Catholic. Yep.
It's Catholic. Okay. So if your football program, assuming a lot of those recruits already have some faith, I would gather.
Yeah, I mean, I think we source a lot of our guys from similar type backgrounds, from Catholic leagues, and it's something that I'm not shy about talking about, and it's something that we're going to do pretty much every day in our program, and I'm able to use that platform here and to watch guys not only kind of explore their faith, but strengthen it, and then kind of take the reins and go. And so I've had some of our own guys here, start their own players only Bible study, and do some really cool things. And so one of our quarterbacks actually comes to my church on Sundays, sits
that's
right next to my wife and I. So it's a much deeper connection when you have the faith component than just the kind of normal structure of conversation that happens every day.
So there's a lot there. In fact, there's a lot of different things I want to touch on with that. So I'd say first, being that they're, already having a disposition of having the faith, they feel more empowered when coming into your program. They're already having that willingness to do more, having that open-mindedness to explore their faith, strengthen their faith, and deepen their connections and their relationships. So they already know, it seems like, that they want to do better for themselves. They want to improve and be somebody who would be an upstanding citizen and a good role model. Do I have that right?
I hope so. I mean, we pride ourselves in trying to bring in guys with what we call championship character. And so, my job is to mold 18 to 22-year-old males in our society. And some of my neighbors look at me like I'm crazy. Because that's my job. Like, that's what I actually get compensated for. And so, my future and what I do here is dependent on the decisions of those guys collectively. So we have to bring in and try to educate guys. And it's really hard to educate on character. It's you either have it or you don't. And you have a foundation you can build on, or, hey, you're defiant, or you want to live by your own rules, and that's okay. That's who you want to be. But we have expectations in the program. And so our goal is to, and our mission is to meet or exceed the expectation in the program every day.
Okay. So you said that, if they are kind of, what would you say? I don't know, standoffish, they're not necessarily for it. How do you approach that, especially coming from, a what is the term, secular college?
Sure. So I would say this, like, I'm not here to change anybody's mind.
Okay.
I'm here to open and explore opportunities. And I can only do it by walking in my own faith. And so I'll give you a key example that happened this past season. We had a really hard game against Southern Connecticut on the road, and it was kind of misting out and not a great environment, and it was just back and forth, and we were up 3-0. It was one of those kinds of games.
Okay.
Just a struggle, and
knockdown.
It was about a minute 28 left. I made a call, and their guy made an unbelievable catch, one-handed catch. Which, 2 plays earlier, if we execute what we're supposed to execute, we probably intercept the ball and the game's over. And so, we end up losing the game 6-3, and everyone's distraught. Right. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm literally saying, God, what's the message here?
Yeah.
And so I just very calmly said, okay, everyone relax. Great game. You gave it your all. Nobody came out here and said, man, let's just come on the road and lose this game and then go home. I'm sure nobody raised their hand to that. Right. So
right.
I said, if we won 3-0, you guys would all be high-fiving it. I said, but you allow the scoreboard to dictate how you act. And so my level of maturity is a little bit different than yours. And so I know you guys played a hard game. You left it all on the field. It didn't roll our way. And I said, great things are going to come. And one of my captains came up to me and he said, Coach, how do you, like, we're all distraught here, man. Guys are like, got their heads down. How do you keep your composure? And how are you just in good shape right now? I said, well, my faith sustains me, and so I believe in something that's more powerful, and I believe in something that guides me and has an everlasting peace and joy to my life. and I'm not going to let the outcome of one football game affect what my abilities are here and what I believe in this team. And so after we had that conversation, we came in that Sunday, and then we went on one of the greatest 3-game runs that this program has ever seen.
That's a fantastic story. And that right there reminds me so much of actually one of our previous guests, Eddie Fields, a coach out of Indiana, a former college coach, in fact. But we talked a lot about mental toughness. So we talk about that a lot on After the Game. And that right there is pretty much the very definition of mental toughness, of having that, not letting that get to you. How much can you withstand before you break? And you did not let that break you. And you were trying to basically, demonstrate that to the rest of your team, to let them know that, hey, don't let this, deter you. Don't let this take you down. Don't let this keep you distraught. Keep your head held high, glass half full.
Yep.
Take this as a learning opportunity, so that way we can play better the next game. We can execute like we need to on the next game. So that's
spot on.
Yeah, that's a great example. No, thank you. Thanks for that one. So what has kept you coaching for so long? What is most rewarding about it for you?
The grace of God has kept me coaching this long, and so
can't argue with that.
I'm really passionate about what I do. For me, coaching is like going to the clubhouse every day. I look around and I'm like, man, I get to do this thing, and so and they actually like pay me to do this. Like this is the best thing ever. And so it's just a joy and an excitement that I have every morning. And I still I still wake up with like butterflies in my stomach some mornings. And I still wake up like, okay, is this guy gonna figure it out finally? And hey, is this player going to become what I think he can become? And I think the cool part about coaching is that the variable is the team. Okay. And so like the team is never the same.
Okay.
You have guys that get injured, new guys are starting to sprout. You have guys who you think are going to be the guys. And then, one or two guys come out of nowhere and you're like, okay, well, this true freshman has come out of nowhere and has figured it out. And so, and then you have graduation, and then you have to develop the next group of leaders. And so I always tell my guys, the variable is the team. And you never know what season you're going to be in, right? And God puts us in different seasons. So like, a young man who maybe hasn't figured it out in year 1 or year 2, like I tell my team, I go, just because it hasn't happened, to me, it means it just hasn't happened yet.
Wow.
The key word being yet.
Yeah.
And so like, it can still happen for you. Like, don't give up on yourself. Like if you're not where you want to be at, and I think this isn't true in life, right? If you're not where you want to be at, just keep working towards a vision of what you want to become, and it will happen. And we all want it to happen now, of course, because we live in a now society. But at the end of the day, it's going to happen when it happens. And so, you don't want to be that young guy who, 1 year in says, oh man, I'm not what I really want to be yet. And then, he gives up on his dream too early. And then, man, by junior year, he could have become something.
Wow.
And so, I just have this, I have this gift that I've been given to see what people are going to become. And we have made a living on it at St. Anselm of taking guys who are not heavily recruited, who are maybe had some injuries their senior year. We poured into them and we've extracted the very best out of them. And that's, I think there's something hugely powerful as a young male in our society when you have strong role models, especially male ones that come alongside of you that say, hey man, I believe that you have something in you, and then can extract that. That's a pretty cool experience.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, especially when you're talking about today's society, there's a lot of young males. Heck, I mean, recently I was reading about the male loneliness epidemic going on right now. There's too many males that don't have the guidance, the proper guidance to steer them in the right direction to be more successful, to be more productive, to become an upstanding citizen that is somebody who the family would look up to as a leader, to be a strong provider, all those things. I mean, a lot of that, really what you said there kind of encompasses that. So that is incredible right there. So have any of the players that you've coached over time, some of these guys that you have that gift, that foresight to be able to tell when they have this great potential, have any of them gone off to bigger and better? What's some of the cool things about that? Has any of them gone to the NFL?
They have not gone to the NFL, but I think, when I speak about that, it's finding this love for this game. Okay. And so, it's not, I've coached, gosh, man, in 28 years, I've probably coached thousands of players in some capacity, whether it was a student assistant, coordinator role, head coach. You'd like to say that, man, you're 1,000, you're 100%, right? That's just not going to happen. And so there's guys I've had conflict with, and I'm not bashful about that. And so I think conflict happens between player and coach when, there's an expectation from one side or the other, and the other side doesn't meet it. And so, like a coach has an expectation of a player, and then he sees him waste his talent, or it's not as important to him as the coach thinks it should be. And then there's going to be sparks. There's going to be conflict.
Oh, so true.
And so like, and that's why, you look at student athletes, you say, well, man, there's guys that are talented and there's guys that work hard. Now the special ones are the talented hard workers, right? But the talented guy that doesn't work hard drives you crazy, because it's like leading a horse to water but he doesn't drink. And then, I really enjoy the guy that maybe isn't gifted athletically, like doesn't run the fastest, but man, that guy, like if you're in a backyard brawl, he is jumping and he's got your back. And so there's something pretty cool about that. I'm not condoning fighting or anything, but that's just the analogy that I like to give.
Right. No, I think there's a difference between being a humble warrior and then being someone who's just a complete savage out there trying to cause harm. There's a distinction between the two. Absolutely.
Totally.
So there is something that I wanted to bounce off of you, considering your historic coaching record. Let me see here. I want to get it right, so I'm trying to find it right now here. And let me see. I think I'm almost there. It was, oh goodness, this is going to drive me nuts. Here we go. All right. So as a coach, what from your perspective is more important? Talent or effort? Yeah, right? Head scratcher.
I'm going to say this. If you don't have talent on your roster,
okay,
I don't care how good of a coach you are, you have zero chance.
Okay,
I'm being honest with you. Yeah. We have seen it over and over. You have seen great coaches in our game, and Nick Saban is the outlier because he's been able to do it for such a long time.
Yeah.
But you have seen like I'll look at for example, Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, who had a phenomenal season, and it's like, okay, man, maybe they had the right mix of people. Mm-hmm. Maybe they were super talented this year, but they weren't as good last year, the year before. So does he not know how to coach?
Oh,
that's a good question, right?
That's very thought provoking, right there.
So then when you look at TCU, right? TCU goes to the final, 2 years ago, the final game.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So, and I mean, Sonny Dykes comes onto the stage, grabs a bunch of transfers, got the right mix of people. They have Max Dugan, the quarterback. They're rolling. They win some big games, man. They're beating some great teams. it's all coming together for them. And like, you're like, man, these guys are the greatest things in sliced bread. We got to follow that model. Well, they were talented and they had some, some things come together. And then, they come out this year and they lose to Colorado in week 1 and they don't have the greatest season. So it's like, okay, does that guy not know how to coach anymore?
Right. So would you say that it's almost like with what you're, to reference your example of, he went in there, he got some, he recruited some people that were no one necessarily wanted. Is that right?
Well, I think they're a talented bunch of transfers that he got. And then he had the right quarterback and he had the right coaching staff. I think people are really underestimating timing, and timing is a huge piece of coming together in college football. It's a huge piece.
So timing, and is it almost like not an exact science, but there's like almost like some sort of equation to it of filling your gaps?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you have to
put puzzles together.
Yeah, you have to have the right mix of coaches and players. Right. And sometimes, like, you're like, man, this is a great mix of players, but the coach just isn't using it schematically right, or like isn't motivating them right. And so, or hey, the coach wants to do a certain thing, but doesn't have enough guys to play man coverage on third down enough. So, he struggles a little bit. And so I think the greatest coaches figure out what they're good at and then, morph it into what their players do well, not what they don't do well. But you still have to have talent. You have to. I look at, again, I'm just going off of bigger schools. I think James Franklin, I had a chance to go to Penn State this last spring for spring ball. I think those guys do a phenomenal job. I mean, phenomenal. Manny Diaz, excellent, who's now the head coach at Duke, excellent coordinator. Coach Franklin does an excellent job in his coaching staff, really top-notch people. Their players practice hard. They're really well coached, but the challenge is they run through everybody. And then, they come up against an Ohio State or a Michigan.
Yeah.
And everyone's complaining. Well, they got you a little bit out talented, man. I'm not saying, I don't think they get out coached. I think there are only so many guys who can cover a Marvin Harrison guys. You know what I mean? There's only so many dudes that can go against Blake Corum and tackle that guy. So you just very get, talented. So that's the talent aspect, right? I think you have to have a certain amount of talent to compete. And talking on the other side of my mouth, obviously you have to have effort. If you just have talent, we've seen some of those teams where you're like, man, they put this super team together, but they're just not like, what's going on here? Like they don't play hard. They don't work hard. They don't finish plays. They seem disinterested. The mix is all wrong. The timing is all wrong.
So what did you think of the Big House winning? What'd you think of Michigan?
I mean, I thought the game against Alabama was outstanding. I think it could have gone any way. And then in the final, I mean, obviously Michigan proved that they're the better team. And so it was, they have great defense. They run the ball and they don't turn the ball over. They don't beat themselves. That's the one thing I'll say about Michigan this past year is they rarely turn the ball over and they are fundamentally sound and they do not beat themselves. And they play with an air of confidence. Like they come off the bus and they're ready to beat you.
Wow. It's almost like they got you beat before you even get on the field.
A lot of times they do. And in some cases in the Big Ten, they probably did. But, obviously you run into the same type of talented type teams when you get into, the playoff and such. But I thought all the games were competitive and they were fun. And, but Washington did their very best. And, a couple plays, but I mean, it's just matchups too. And so you look at it and that's why it's going to be interesting once, the Oregons and the UCLAs of the world come east, how are they going to match up with, the Nebraskas, the Michigans, and the Ohio States of the world that try to ground and pound it down your throat and play action it.
When you got the what's the saying? Corn-fed. You got the big corn-fed guys, and they're just big. They're big boys.
Yes, they are.
So, were you a player yourself?
I was in high school, and then I went for 1 year to Minnesota State Mankato. And
really?
Southwest Minnesota. And so coming out of high school, I knew I wanted to play football. I thought I was a little bit better than Division III. And so, I was looking, and I knew that the major I wanted, which was electrical engineering, University of Illinois had it. I was not that good. So I was at least smart enough to understand that. So I was like, let me start looking at these Division II, these scholarship places. And so I walked on there with Dan Runkel as the head coach, and I just kind of did it on my own. I just called the coach and said, hey, man, I'm coming into town. And I was this, 17, 18-year-old kid that flew himself up to Minnesota, got a hotel room. I literally went on my own. And I just showed up and said, hey, I'd like to walk on. And that's what I did.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
But that's 17 or 18, and you're just deciding to do that, huh? Like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna give this a shot. Let's see what happens.
Well, I'm a first generation college graduate.
Oh, wow.
So you have to break out of the mold a little bit and challenge yourself. So I remember I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm like, I remember like I was yesterday. I was in a I think it was a motel, for crying out loud, in Mankato, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to get to the school and go see this admissions people, and then just stop by the weight room or the coach's office and see if they're there. And so that's kind of how it worked out. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll come, and they're like, yeah, we'll take you, and then end up coming back in the fall and roll.
And so how long did you walk me through your college football experience, and then when did you decide that you wanted to go down the road of coaching?
So I went to school to be an electrical engineer.
Right.
And that lasted 1 day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Quick turnaround there.
Yeah. So I had actually stayed on the engineering floor, and I was like, man, I go to my first engineering class, and I'm like, electrical engineering. And I'm like, okay, they're talking about ohms and capacitors. And I'm like, man, you guys getting all this stuff? And they're like, yeah, this is great. I'm like, this sucks. And I'm like, I'm not doing this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So, I grew up pretty humbly. And so we didn't have a lot growing up. So I kind of like had to have a little get together to try to get me to college.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I scraped everything together. And so I get there, and now I'm like running back to my room, and I'm like sweating profusely, because I'm like, what do I do now? Like,
oh no,
I got to call my mom and say, hey, I made a mistake here. And so like, I love the football. And so I was just learning, I was redshirting and learning how to play football. And so, and then, like once I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. I kind of spiraled a little bit, and I was like, had a little bit of freedom. I think like most 18-year-olds do. And, didn't make the greatest bunch of decisions probably, but coming into the spring, I was pretty excited, chance to prove myself, right, to the coaches. And it was a really hard conversation because my mother had called me and said, listen, like, there's no more finance. There's no more funds. Like, I don't know what we do here. And so we're struggling at home. And then I go into coach, and he's like, well, if you stick it out, we might be able to give you some scholarship money at the end of the season, at the end of the semester. And so I'm like, man, all I wanted to do is try and earn this scholarship. Right. And, in the game that I love. And then, but on the other hand, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, it's me, my mom, my sister, we're living in an apartment. We're all struggling. And so like, nobody wants to tell me that while I'm away from college. So, it's one of those crossroads you have in life. And so you either choose this path or that path. And so I decided to leave. It was really hard, man. I'll never forget walking into coach's office, and I don't know if I've maybe once, twice in my life ever cried that hard in my life.
Wow.
And I was just uncontrollable because it meant so much to me, as a young guy. And so because the regret of not knowing how good I could have become was probably at the forefront of my mind. And so, then I went home and I worked 2 jobs, double shifted, and try to find myself for a little bit of time.
This was back in Illinois then, right?
Yeah, I left Minnesota. My best friend picked me up, drove from Illinois. I still talk with Aaron. He's my best friend in the world, and I'm going to take a trip with him this July.
Oh, good.
And so we're still very, very close. And so now I had to kind of come home and work and live reality. And so that's one thing I do preach to my players and everybody that I coach: live in your own reality, man. Because I am a firm product of that. You can sit here and say, well, Johnny down the street has this, and so-and-so has this. That's not your reality. That's their reality. So I had to live in my reality. I had to learn that very early. And it kind of shaped me and molded me into who I am.
So you learned that was almost a very profound teaching moment for you of, hey, if I want to achieve great things and get to the life that I want, I'm going to have to put in so much more effort, so much more work to break that mold that you mentioned and make your family proud and build the family and the career that you wanted. So what you got 2 jobs? You were working 2 jobs down in Northern Illinois, Chicagoland area?
Yeah, just outside the house. There was this drive-through coffee spot that I was kind of double shifting.
Really?
And my buddy Aaron hooked me up with, and so I did that for a little bit of time, and it was fine. And I got into the coffee business, to be honest with you. And
really,
and so I'm an early riser, so it was like whatever 4:45 in the morning, and you'd start kicking that thing up, and then I'd go home for a couple hours, and then sometimes I'd come home and finish up the 2 to 6 or 2 to 7 shift, and then go back home and start it all over. And so but I had to do that because I had to do that, and that was my reality, right? So but in this time frame, football is still on my mind.
Okay.
Because I'm like, this is not it, right? I'm going to do this now, but this is not it.
This is to get you to
this
prepare
is to
you
get
to
me. Yeah.
I'm
like, hey, I got to restart this thing. All right. So I got to take a step back to go 2 steps forward. Right. And so I do this for a little bit of time, and then we relocate into the western suburbs, near Harper Community College.
Okay.
And so I'm running this again, drive-through coffee business for a guy, and his name's John, and I'm forever indebted to him. And so
well, hopefully he can hear this episode.
I hope so. John Jaworski, man, saved a life, man. So and so he encourages me. He's like, hey, I know you're doing a great job in this, in the coffee thing. So, we're running the business, but I know this is not it. So, have you thought about like going to Harper and seeing if like they'll, let you do something? I'm like, no, I haven't thought one iota about it. And so, it's junior college. I'm like, I didn't know too much about it. And so I call over there and I introduce myself, and I meet a guy who literally changed my life. His name is John Elizik.
Mm-hmm.
He's the winningest head football coach in junior college history.
Wow.
In all of it. And I still to this day talk to him. He's a great mentor. I am not where I am, and I am not living a fruitful life in football without that dude right there. And I have to give him props.
So I've noticed a common theme here. You've mentioned 3 individuals so far that had not only a strong connection with you, but have given you a lot of guidance. You had your best friend,
Aaron.
Aaron, who took you from Minnesota. He picked you up. I mean, that's a good friend right there.
Yes, it
Hooked
is.
you up with the job, so you knew you had some sort of stability and something to at least have some gainful employment while you try to figure out a new strategy, a new plan for your life. Then you've got the guy who owned the coffee shop that said, "Hey, why don't you check out Harper?"
Yep.
Then you got in touch with the most winningest quarterback and JUCO
Or head coach. Yep, head coach.
Head coach.
Yeah.
Sorry, head coach in junior college history. I mean, if that's not a grand plan,
No doubt.
if that's not something from someone upstairs saying I'm leading you on a path, I don't know what the heck is, man.
So I just put my head down and I was like, okay. And I said, Coach, his name is John Elizik. I said, Coach Eli, I will come here. I'll work for free, man. I don't care.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I started. And I said, I will come here. I go, I don't need a time clock. Like, just tell me what you want to do. And I didn't know football like I know football, right? And so I'm just sitting there learning. And to his credit, he had a lot of patience with me. And then every year I was there, he gave me a little bit more. So kind of how my schedule was for about 5 years. Okay. It was, and I transitioned to, once that drive-through coffee business was done, I went to another one in Palatine, which was closer to,
oh yeah, I know Palatine.
to Harper. Right. And so that's where Harper's just outside of, and I met a lady named Norma Hipshin who ran her cafe right there. And she brought me on as managing it. So I could pretty much work from like 5 to 1:30 in that range. Okay. So I could work my 40 hours a week. Then I went to football, which was my real passion. Okay. And I did that from 2:00 till after practice. And then I would go to class from
That's
6
a busy
to
schedule.
Yeah, I go to class from 6 to 9. So I did that for 5 straight years, pretty much.
Wow. And that's Monday through Friday, or are there weekends included in
Well,
that?
the weekends I worked, I either was coaching,
Okay.
or I worked for my uncle down in the city as a kind of a secondary, pick up a couple hours here and there.
Sure.
So, but that's what I had to do to gain my associate's degree.
Yeah.
And so it took me 5 years instead of 2 years.
Well, what's very impressive about that is the fact that you were undeterred from achieving this goal. I mean, even 5 years, I mean, most people would give up after 1 year.
Yep.
And you did that for 5 straight years.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there shows resilience. It shows very strong character. You had a goal and you wanted to achieve it. And how old were you at this time? 21, 22?
Gosh, let's see. I was probably about 22-ish. Yeah.
How many 22-year-olds have that kind of grit, have that kind of determination where they're unshaken and they're laser focused about achieving a goal they know is going to take some time? And
well, I knew that if I didn't get, I believe in education, and so I knew if I didn't get it, that it wasn't going to unlock the future for me. And so, I loved the coffee business and I was good at it and I enjoyed it. But I didn't want to do it when I was 45 and 50.
Makes sense. I would agree with that. I would say
nothing against those that are doing it.
If you compare the coffee business versus, your career now, I'm sure you would say that your career now is much more rewarding than, a cup of Joe in the morning. So let's talk about you have a family.
Mm-hmm.
You have a wife and how many children?
So I have 2 stepchildren, Joe and Jess, that I adopted about 12 years ago. And yep. And when I came into their lives was right when I was kind of taking over John's Cafe, the drive-through one, the second one that I spoke of when I started to get into Harper.
Yep. That's
And
when you
so
met
that's
your
when I
wife?
met my wife, and
Yeah.
we I was coaching at Harper, and so that's she enjoyed coming to the games and stuff, and so we just kind of built our relationship from there, and did I think I was going to be a stepdad or anything like that, or a father figure? I mean, not really, because I grew up. My dad passed away when I was 1, so
Wow.
I didn't grow up with a dad, right? My mom was both for me, and it was hard. Obviously, my mom's a saint, but um, I've got two great children who I live in New Hampshire. My wife and I live in New Hampshire, obviously, and they're living in Dallas and Houston, respectively. So they're
Okay.
both in Texas.
Both in Texas. Yeah.
Yes. So
Beautiful state.
yeah, my daughter is living with her 2 kids in Dallas, and then my son Joe has 4 now. And funny enough, or ironic enough, I guess, what I did in our family's life, right, in coming into a family where a young lady had 2 children, he actually did the same exact thing when he went down to Houston. And so I don't know, it's just kind of like worked out that way. So but he's a great dad, he's a hard worker, and I'm really proud of him.
So let me ask you this, and this is no discredit to your mother. Obviously, she did a wonderful job, raising you, to the best of her ability and on the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned there was some family strife with money, and you're a first generation college graduate. So is one of your goals to be the father? You want to be that role model, that male figurehead that you unfortunately didn't get to have?
That's a really good question, and it's a solid question. I think about that sometimes, and it's like, how does a kid who grows up without a dad
Mhm.
becomes a father figure to a lot of guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got great stories. I've got great texts. I've got great memories. I've got great conversations. And so, I don't know. I mean, again, higher power ordained that way, I guess. The strong male role model I had in my life was my grandfather on my father's side. He was like your old school American grandfather, man, and like Saturday mornings, doing stuff and going to the barber shop. Like, I mean, I remember like small thing. It was the small things were important to me.
Yeah.
Like he used to let me sit in the front seat of his Oldsmobile, and I can like smell that smell of the car.
Yeah.
Like new leather, and it's like, man, like I miss that, right? And so which I mean, kids today, they don't have those memories, right?
I think they take a lot of those things for granted, as a matter of fact.
Totally.
Everything that you just said, for some odd reason, I think of the movie Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
How he was this.
There's no doubt.
This.
My grandfather was opinionated cat, man.
Yes.
Right? So,
and
I mean, he was a tough dude now.
Kept himself busy. He was tough as nails. They don't make him like that, like they used to. And he was a man worth his salt,
Yes.
And he understood the value in hard work, and he understood that some things take time. There isn't instant gratification. There's no easy button. You have to work hard at it, and it's going to take time. You have to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to get there. So that's your grandfather reminds me a lot of.
Yeah, right. That. So like if he needed help with something, like I was the help.
Yeah.
Right. You need the gutters cleaned. All right, call Joe. You need like all right, we gotta weed out the garden. All right, call so and so. And trust me, there was no ice cream at the end of the day here. Okay. So it was like, hey, thanks a lot. And here, come have a cold lemonade, and then all right, pick them up.
Yeah, exactly. Like your reward was getting the opportunity to do the work. And now you've got this. Now it turns out you're skilled in gutter cleaning. You're skilled in this. You're skilled in that. And here you are like, wait, why am I doing this?
Yeah. My wife looks at me like, why are you up on the garage cleaning the gutters? I'm like, I think it's just like,
it's ingrained in me now.
It's ingrained in me now.
Well, yeah, grandfathers, they're really something. So how has, and speaking of family, so how has the game and your faith impacted your family's relationship between you and your wife and your kids and your grandfather, so your grandkids as well?
I would say this, it's really difficult as a coach to have the best of all worlds, to have a great family life as well as a great football life. And so you have to have a very special woman. I am very blessed to have a special woman in my life who has been with me through all the ups and downs, who understands that some weeks I'm going to work 12 and 15-hour days, and it's going to be a very lonely sometimes. And I'm going to have a hard time unplugging, which is becoming harder and harder with all this social media stuff and Twitter and all the rest of this stuff that we have to do. And it's nonstop. And so that has become hard, and it's hard on relationships because I legitimately will see my grandkids, if I'm lucky, once a year, sometimes twice because, of my schedule. And so I'm a head coach. I'm responsible for 120 plus players and then, 8 coaches and support staff. So, they got to get everything out of me every day. And so that's a lot to manage, and managing that, and then managing all the things that go on in your family, and making sure you don't miss somebody's, one of the grandkids' birthdays, and how's, so-and-so, and yep, he was sent back from school for something today. And, it's a lot. It's a lot to handle. And so, but I always say this, that, God will never give me more than I can handle.
I think that's well said. I'd also say that I can understand that's the burden of command there, So
very good point.
So your wife would be, I imagine, so she's one heck of a partner who not only understands this stuff, but she is trying to, and I don't mean compensate in a negative connotation, but more of a, where you're going to be busy off that, she's going to handle the other stuff, right? So she'll take care of those other duties happily, knowing that you have a lot of burden on your shoulders to manage. So, and that speaks volumes to her character. Sounds like an incredible woman. What's her name again?
Her name's Lisa.
Lisa. That's my mother's name.
Is that right? She's
my mother's name.
I always say she's the real head coach.
Yeah. That's a great name. No,
Lisa. And you know what? I love, because she's around our team and she's around our players. And I think it's really important in today's society. And we kind of do this, a little bit of, out in front of this is, I like having my wife around the team, because I want them to understand what a real loving relationship looks like.
Oh, that's good.
What respect between a male and a female looks like, and how it's modeled. And so, I wouldn't be where I am without my wife. Trust me. I mean, there's a lot of help, man, that she's given me.
You touched on a few really important key things that I think in today's society has been convoluted. It's nearly lost. I mean, the divorce rates are ridiculously high. You have people who are, the whole courting ritual is just completely changed. It's all, now done on apps, and men and women aren't sure how to treat each other like they should be treated, because they're seeing it on TV versus seeing it in person live from a man such as yourself, who's, showing the way it's done, being exemplary of how you should treat a woman and how a woman should treat a man, and the dignity and respect and loving kindness and, balancing each other. So that's really important. I think that's absolutely magnificent what you guys are doing right there.
We're trying, man. We're, like I said, it's a different world where I'm talking to a player today, and he's talking to, I'm like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? He's like, well, I'm going to see going on a date and stuff. I'm like, oh, where'd you meet this young lady? Well, I met her on a dating app called Hinge
Tinder
or whatever. And I'm like, wow, it's a different story, man. And so but I get it. But again, like, if we don't have coaches,
yeah.
how are males in our society supposed to learn how to be men? Where do you find that? Where I mean, if you don't go to church, and if you don't have a relationship with God, if you don't have strong male role models, where are you seeing this modeled? Like, you're not seeing it on TV, that's for sure. You can't watch the news and watch the madness that we're watching right now. So, like, where do you see it? I guess that's a really great question for everybody. Where do you see real male role models model?
You just asked the question of the night. that is the question right there. Where do you see that? That's something I'm going to be thinking on all weekend now.
Yeah.
I would say that for me, my dad he's my best friend. I talk to my dad like every other day.
That's cool.
We keep in very close contact. And he's actually my mother's ex-husband, and he basically he adopted me. All right, so he is a phenomenal guy. He's worked very hard his whole life, and he always likes to tell me, he's like, hey, I wasn't the smartest, but I tried my hardest. I always worked very hard to do everything I can to provide for you kids, and I wanted you guys to have a better life than what I had, and that is what a good role model is. A good male.
That's commendable, man. That's exactly what it's all about. That's right.
I think so too. Absolutely. 100% agree. And I think that, both my parents did everything that they could to, much like yours did, or much like your mother did, to give you the keys to, find your own way and become successful, building in you that drive, that resilience, that determination, and that understanding that if I really want to get to that next level in my life and get set up for success, I'm going to have to work really hard at it. It's not done overnight. It's certainly something that people, it goes back to what you said earlier about that instant gratification. Too many people want that instant gratification, and it's just not achievable like that. There is no easy button. Full stop. No easy button.
And the challenge I see today, to the offshoot of what you're saying, is that today's parents, they don't allow their kids to fail. Okay. And it's really important, because when they get to me and they've never failed a test, they've never been beaten on a football field or drummed like a team can do that to you, they don't know how to handle it mentally, because they've never been allowed adversity in their lives. And so the best thing that we can do is allow them to fail, because not everyone's going to win all the time, right? And so allow them to fail so they can take a step back, reflect on it, and say, okay, what can I do better the next time? And that's what learning is, right? It's learning from your failures. But we're starting to grow up in a society now, and I'm seeing it with the kids that we have, where, man, like, what do you mean I didn't make the travel squad? Well, you didn't make it. Somebody else beat you out. That's the truth. I'm not going to feel bad for you. Like I told you, that's what was going to happen a month ago. And so, a lot of guys have a hard time with that. And then their parents have a hard time with that.
I was just going to ask, how is that dealing with the parents? What's that?
I'm very cut and dry when it comes to that. Like, my business is the business of football, and I'm the GM and I run the team, and that's it. And so, I have some do's and don'ts of parenting here, and God bless our parents. They have been awesome. And they know that, don't call me about playing time. Don't call me about, scholarship. And don't write me an email that says blank doesn't know I'm writing this. Because if you write that, I will print it and I will put it in the locker room. So
I think you gave me goosebumps just now.
they are allowed to, if they see something like, hey, something's wrong with my son, or I'm feeling like, I have some concern about his mental health, or I'm seeing this, or this is what he's been saying to me, then hey, it takes a village to raise a young man, right? So let's have some open conversation. But if it's going to be regarding the game, it's off limits.
Absolutely. So what do you do, or how do you approach that? If it's, let's say it's not about the game.
Yep.
Let's say there is something, they're having some trouble upstairs.
Yep.
With managing, their lives.
Yeah.
The academics, the game, personal lives, relationships, a girlfriend, even. You as being the role model that you are, what's your take on that? How do you approach that?
Happens all the time.
Really? Okay.
Happens all the time. I mean, they should call me the Mad Hatter because of all the hats that I wear.
Wow.
And I'm not alone, right? I think coaches do this across the board. Whether it comes to finance, or something's not right on campus, or coach, I need help in the classroom, or hey, I've got something going on with a young lady, or I'm having trouble with my parents. My parents are breaking up. Like, I'm just like, okay, well, number one, my office door is always open. I never close my office door. Number two, my office is a safe space. I will not judge you. I'm here to listen, and I'm here to help you if you ask for my assistance. And so I think that's where it starts. It starts with relationship. It starts with truth. And then we get to the bottom of it. And then I just kind of, if they ask me for my advice, I try to give them some wisdom, and, at least make them feel like, they're heard and that they're important. And I think that's what's built our culture here at St. Anselm, where, not everybody plays, obviously, because we have a large team, but, I'm proud of the fact that we don't have anybody in the transfer portal who's an underclassman. And our retention rate is actually higher than our college's retention rate. And so we have built this because of relationship and connection. And that is the secret to the sauce of what we do here.
Now we know.
Now you know.
Now we know your secret.
Yep.
So when we think about football, especially football, you think of NFL. I'm assuming you watched the Super Bowl.
I did.
Okay, so before every game, like you see in every movie, you see it. If they put the camera in the locker room, on Sunday, team gathers around and they're praying. They're praying together, and which I think that's a wonderful thing. Now, does it seem like that's much more apparent in football than any other sport? And why would you say that is? Why do we see more players and coaches, wanting to take a knee and
sure,
listen to the grace of God and, talk about him for a few minutes before, game time?
I think it's something that probably is more visual and apparent in the football landscape.
Okay.
I think there's very strong faith-based coaches around this country in all different sports. And so I just think it's something that, out of mind, out of sight, right? And so you don't really see it sometimes. Maybe you don't see it at a soccer game because you don't have that access in the locker room, right? You don't have access to a clubhouse in baseball, right? But you still see guys running out to left field and, making a cross and, pointing up to the sky. You see gestures of those nature, but I think it's very polarizing in the game of football. Most NFL teams, I think if every one of them has a team chaplain. So it's part of that ingrained culture, right? And so I would say a lot of major college football teams have a team chaplain. We did when we were at Western Michigan, especially. And I remember those Friday night or night before Bible gatherings. And, we kind of did it our linebacker coach at Syracuse, Clark Lee, who's now the head coach at Vanderbilt, did it at Syracuse. And so, on Thursday nights. So, I think it's just something that is, you see, and I think it's modeled, right? I mean, the NFL is such a big fish that, if Sauce Gardner wore neon green gloves, I guarantee you a lot of DBs in the country would start wearing neon green gloves, and so like it's just you see in the NFL, you see guys huddling around the 50-yard line, you see them run out of the tunnel and then they go and kneel in the end zone and pray. Well, that's what our kids are looking at, and that's the stars they're trying to emulate, right? I think that kind of brings that to a point.
So they're setting a good example.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if it's genuine, sure. I mean, that's what far be it from me to judge anybody.
Of course. So what, with that, I mean, and your players, what leadership qualities are you trying to instill in your team captains and your senior players,
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to instill here is this service to others.
Okay. Wow.
Jesus was a servant to people, right? He healed people. He helped people. He congregated with people who weren't the greatest of probably, character people. But he did that because he had a love for people and he had a love for serving. And there was nothing that was too big for him. And so people followed him, and you see his ministry that was over 2,000 years ago that really started in his 30s, only lasted 3 years. And now 2,000 years later, we're still talking about it. And it's the basis of Christianity because of his acts of service. You know what I mean? And so, so I try to challenge my guys into how can they pour into each other. And so iron sharpens iron. I do believe that, right?
Absolutely. I love that.
When iron sharpens iron, there's going to be sparks. That spark is conflict. Okay. I may be the only person that I know that thinks conflict is good. All right. I mean, conflict's okay.
Let's talk about that. Now you really got my
conflict,
my ears burning.
When you have iron sharpening iron, right?
Yeah.
Like you have a guy that says to another guy, like, hey man, you know what? Maybe you should stop partying on the weekend and give that habit up so you can become what you're supposed to become, because you're a really talented guy. Well, there's conflict there. Well, maybe I don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's well
or
said.
Hey, maybe if you listen to coach and, sat in the first 2 rows of class, maybe you wouldn't have to be in study hall. Right. And so like, that's holding each other accountable. And so great leaders hold each other accountable. Remember, accountability is not a number, it's people. Right. And so like I say all the time, and I referenced it earlier, we have standards and benchmarks. I don't have a bunch of rules here. I just don't believe in a bunch of rules. Rules have consequences. Rules have to be, I'm not here to be the warden. We have shared vision and we have expectations, right? So you meet or exceed the expectations. When you meet the expectation or exceed it, man, I'm going to high five you. I'm going to praise you. I'm going to pat you on the back. I'm going to make you feel like $1 million, man. Okay. But when you fall short of the expectation, unequivocally, I'm going to let you know about it, because there's no gray area here. And I'm going to pull you in man to man and be like, you're not meeting the expectation. What are we going to do here?
I think that's really good. I because there's so many, back to something that you said earlier, too many of the youth of today are risk adverse. They don't want to take that risk. They don't want to think it looks difficult. I don't want to even try it, And I think that kind of ties into that, because if they're not willing to take that risk and do that, they're underperforming. They're not realizing potential. They're not trying to execute, and in that shared vision and adhering to the expectations that you're trying to set forth for the team. It's a shared vision and of expectations. So that's pretty interesting. How, you're not too bashful, and you're going to pull them aside and you're going to let them know. And I think that's another good thing too, because too many people of the youth today, they, hey, don't give them, you got to go easy on them. You got to go easy on them. And that's good. Sometimes.
Yeah. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it. It's
Yeah.
one of the two, man.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't
100%.
sugarcoat it, man. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think the transparency of where our guys and why we've done so well with our community here is because the guys understand, right or wrong, the guys understand exactly where we are. You know what I mean? And so the greatest compliment I can give the coaching staff is they are the thermostat in the room. And what I mean by that is they know that when you're 18 to 22 in this society, it's really hard, man. And there's going to be a lot of trials and tribulations. All right. So we've got to kind of turn the dial down a little bit. We got to cool it off. We got to come alongside. We got to get around our guys. We got to love them up. We got to get them through the valleys. Okay. But we also have to use some warmth. Okay. And we got to be able to turn the dial up, because if you're not meeting the expectation, if you have more to give, if there's another level to hit, we're going to turn the heat up on you. And so, but you have to coach with both strength and warmth. You have to coach with both. It can't be one or the other.
So it's understanding the balance, and where is that fulcrum point in that balance.
Yeah, coaching is something that's done for you, not to you.
Oh wow, you are full of wisdom.
I mean, I got a lot of years coaching, man, and I've read a lot of things, and I've been around a lot of great people.
You're dropping knowledge on me today.
And
I love it. I love it.
And the guys know I'm like, hey, like, don't get upset when I'm trying to coach you better. Like, I'm trying to hold you to a standard. How could you get upset at me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to coach to you. I'm trying to coach for you. And when they take a step back and reflect that, like, man, you know what? There's a dude that actually cares about what my performance is or cares about my decision making. Like, when I really take a step back, like, that's a pretty awesome thing, man. You know what I mean? Like that don't ever happen a lot in our society.
No,
so maybe I should take stock in that. And that's kind of what happens. And so, like I said, I think there's a level of appreciation, and regardless of whether they play or not, they know that I'm here to develop people. And from the guy who catches all the touchdown passes to the guy in the scout team who is giving me everything he has, but he may not have enough talent right now, but he works his tail off. Like, I'm going to coach the hell out of that dude too.
That's fantastic. So with those players that you're molding and you're building them up and to go out into the world, I mean, do you still keep in touch with any of them? Have you forged those strong bonds that, man, I'll never forget, Coach Joe. Coach Joe taught me so much about being not just being a player on a team, but being a good role model, being a good man,
I hope so. I mean, that's the legacy, right? So
yeah.
I say in my opening when I have new families come onto campus, like, hey, I know I get judged by wins and losses. That's part of our job. The wins and losses that I judge myself on are the lives that you get a chance to change. And so when I look at my career, I have thousands of wins. I have some losses too. Okay. But I have thousands of wins. And regardless of what happens from here on out, I can take solace that I've got thousands of wins under my belt. So from what I think are the real wins and not just the games. Right. And so from time to time, I'll hit some guys up. It's actually become a little bit harder with social media because, you scroll and you see some things like, oh, okay, so-and-so's doing okay. And, I mean, I can't even barely talk to all my own kids, let alone, the kids I have in my program and then our alumni as well. But I have special relationships with, I would say, a couple handfuls of guys. Some of them are in coaching. And,
oh, wow.
Yep. And that's a kind of a cool thing. And so, but I always tell them, like, hey man, just remember guys, when I'm gone, I want you guys to sit around and smoke cigars and tell great stories and embellish a little bit, and and come up with some of my crazy sayings, and and then just have a good time reminiscing. I mean, the game of football, you'll remember a couple of the wins, you'll remember some of those crushing defeats, but you can't ever take away the relationships that it builds. And that's what it's all about 40 years from now.
That was deep.
It's a true story, man.
No, that was fantastic.
Like, I remember some great wins, even when I coached at Elmhurst College, beating Augustana for the first time in 30 years. That was a heck of a party, man.
Wow.
But I can remember, some of the guys on that team and some of the young men I recruited, and I got one of our starting defensive ends sent me a picture about 2 months ago, and it was awesome, man. And I love this. And if you're out there, I want to get more of it. He sends me a picture of him, his wife, his 2 children. He was doing great. I'm really proud of him. And this is a guy who, man, like, after his first year, like, struggled, almost quit college. And, I'm like, hey, man, you're just going through a tough patch. Just hang in there. Like that thing I was talking about earlier and referenced earlier is like, hey, hang in there, man. Like, it ain't over yet. And he helped lead us to, some great seasons, and then obviously blossomed it into a fantastic personal life.
That's not a, what would I say? That's not a happy ending. I don't know what it is.
I'm with you, man.
It's a happy ending. I mean, to go from, being essentially down in the dumps to getting there. I mean, that's what everyone wants. And so, so far we've covered your start. You had a rough start. You had determination, though. You weren't deterred from going after your goal. You've had we talked about some amazing role models that you've had that somebody put in your path.
Yeah.
To, giving you a sign that, hey, this is where you belong. This is where you need to be, because you have a positive message to spread and to instill strong qualities in young men and give them a good role model, which is phenomenal. Talked about a little bit of your trials and tribulations. And so that leads us to, when does Coach Joe hang it up?
That is the $1 million question, right? My friend.
When is it enough?
I think my wife would be like, anytime you're ready to go here, because I'd like to, travel more, and, I'd like to have you home more and do all that stuff. And she's probably listening in the other room, so I got to be careful here in my answer.
Sure.
Or else I'm be in trouble on the weekend. But, I mean, I'm 48 years old. I've got a lot of things I want to accomplish. I've got a lot more football knowledge to gain. I'm a lifetime learner. I study the game of football in some capacity in every day or every other day. Like, I'm not one of these guys that says, hey, I've got this thing figured out. No, I'm searching always for new ideas, new ways to teach, better ways to put it together. Maybe it's a check, maybe it's this or that. Better ways for team performance. So I have this yearning for knowledge, right, in this game. And so if you're not in it, you just, people don't understand it. They think we're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as I enjoy it, and more importantly to me, as long as I'm at a place where I'm valued, that people value what I bring to the table, they value what I do for the university or the team, then I'll continue on. As soon as I don't feel valued, and I'm not talking about compensated, I'm talking about,
Sure.
Hey, that's one of the best coaches or people on this campus, then it's time to move on. And so the thing about coaching that I've always believed, and it's kind of a crazy thought process because nobody else believes it like this that I've ever talked to, is every coaching job you take, you are either going to leave on your own accord or you're going to leave on theirs. and it's not going to go any other way. And that's our business. So you're either going to go and walk into your office, to the AD, the president, and say, hey, you know what, I got a better opportunity, or I'm just decided I'm done with this. Or they're going to come to your office with HR and say, you're done. And it's as simple as that. And it's not personal. It's the business that we chose. And so, I know that every job that I take is going to end that way. It's going to end one way or one way or the other, but it's going to end
eventually. So you're going to ride this wave as long as possible.
I have unfinished works to do here.
Yeah.
Sounds
like it.
We've gone back-to-back winning seasons, the first time in school history. We're the number one scoring defense in the league for first time in school history. We have the largest team that's ever been assembled in the school's history. We're on historic pathways here. And so, our retention rate, like I talked about, since I've been here, we've gone from 87 to 123 on our roster. Yep. And our retention has gone up. So, somebody should come, some admissions people or colleges should be coming to talk to us about how we've done this year. Because I think we've done an awesome job, and it's just relationships and people and standards. And so, I'm part of a very great church here in town called Life Church. Big shout out to them, Pastor Joe and Abby. And so that has become the focal point for my wife and I here, is to serve our community, both, spiritually and on ground, and, see where God wants to put us and God wants to take us. So I'm just going to surrender my plan. I had a post today, and I was inspired this morning at 4:30 when I woke up for our running, inspired from Galatians 2:20, talking a little bit about, surrendering my plan to follow his plan. And so that's what we've decided to do here.
You left me speechless there. That was that was incredible. So if for the listeners and viewers, if they want to find you, give some praise to Coach Joe and in support of what you do. How do they go about that? Where do we find you?
Oh, you can find me everywhere. I'm a pretty active guy. I mean, I'm an active recruiter. So I'm a head coach, a coordinator, and I recruit areas. I recruit whole states. So I've Illinois, Florida, and the DMV. So wow. I'm on Twitter. I know you call it X now. It's Coach Joe Adam. Okay. I'm on Instagram the same way, Coach Joe Adam. Facebook's a personal deal, so I don't give that thing out. And
sure.
But those are my two main ones, and I can only manage those things. So, I mean, I don't have enough time to manage anything else. So
that's fair enough. It sounds like you already do a lot of managing in your life. So a little bit about us. So obviously the podcast is called After the Game, but that's only part and parcel of what we really do. Our company is Team 2. And we kind of fill a void, a niche for schools in managing their athletic programs and after-school activities with our product, and that's custom-built, tailored websites. So when you think of when you think of registering your children up for sports, online ticket sales, having that, moving into that digital phase. I think a lot of public schools, they're behind the times in that, and so we're here to help them, move forward into the digital age much further. So, you can find us at team2.com and, see what we have to offer. So I think that's a great segue. We can start ending it there. And Coach Joe, absolutely appreciate you being on. Phenomenal. And I would love to have you on in the future.
Well, appreciate it, man. And thanks for allowing me to share my story. And it's only by the grace of God, like I said, I'm here, and to all the glory goes to him.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Have a great night and good luck.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning in to After the Game. Brought to you by Team 2, your all-in-one sports website platform. Team 2, we're not just a platform, we're a part of your team too. Until next time, stay in the game.